All right, the second page, the first set of directions is trying to use your calculator to do it. Some of the first ones are a little bit easier because they just are the buttons that are on the calculator. The only thing you have to remember is you have to make sure you decide if you should be in radian mode or degree mode. All right, so the first one is sine of 28 degrees. So you go to mode, make sure you're in degree mode, which I am, and then I just need to hit sine of 28. Hit enter. It says rounded to 2 decimal places. Usually we go more than that when we're doing calculations, but just to make, this is just to make sure you can do it, so I'm going to put 0.47. So I'm rounding to 2 decimal places, 0.47. All right, same thing with number 12, but now it's the cosine of pi over 8. So I need to make sure that I'm in radian mode, and I'm just going to type in the cosine of pi divided by 8. And I get again to 2 decimal places, 0.92. Now you should think about, do these answers make sense or not? Think about pi over 8. It's a very small angle, so it should have a cosine that's pretty close to 1 because that angle is really small, and that's the x value of that angle. When you have a question like the first one, 28 degrees, that's close to 30 degrees, and the sine of 30 is 1/2, so it makes sense that that's very close to 1/2. So you always can kind of double check to make sure you've got it right for some of those easier ones. Tangent of 5 pi over 12, I have to again make sure I'm in radians, which I am. I am going to type in the tangent of 5 times pi, or just 5 pi, divided by 12. And I get 3.73. Now those are a little bit harder to check to see if you've got it correct, because we don't really, that's all a ratio of y to x. So that one's a little bit harder to decide if you got the right answer, but just make sure you are in radian mode, and then just make sure you've typed it in correctly. All right, when we get to the ones that aren't on the calculator, cosecant of 55 degrees. So I need to make sure, again, I'm in degrees, and I don't have a cosecant button, but I do have the reciprocal of that is the sine. So what I'm really looking for is what's 1 over the sine of 55 degrees. So if I can figure out what's the sine of 55 degrees, then I can take its reciprocal. So that's what I'm going to type in. Was I in degrees? Yes, I am. So I have to type in the sine of 55 degrees, get that answer. I want to take the reciprocal of that. So I really want to take 1 over 0.819. Now instead of retyping it, on your calculator, there is the reciprocal button, which is right here, x to the negative first. So once I have the sine of 55, all I need to do is hit that reciprocal button, and I get 1.22. So that's the cosecant of 55 degrees. All right, we'll do the same thing with the secant. Now we have to be in radians. So I go to mode. I'm in radians. I want to take remember this is the reciprocal of the cosine, so I'm going to figure out what's the cosine of pi over 12. So cosine of pi divided by 12 is 0.9659, but again, I want the reciprocal of that value, so I hit my reciprocal button, x to the negative first, and I get 1.04. If I look at 16 is in degrees, so I go down and change to degrees. I'm looking for the cotangent of 70, so I'm going to find the tangent of 70 and then take the reciprocal of that. So I take tangent of 70 degrees, get my answer, and then again, once I have my answer, I hit that x to the negative first button, my reciprocal button, and I get 0.36. All right. Tangent of 21. Now the mistake a lot of people make here is you think it's degrees, but there is no degree sign there. So that's 21 radians. Remember we talked about radians. 6.28 radians is 2 pi. And so 21 radians is more than once around the circle. So I have to go to mode, make sure I'm in radians, because there wasn't a degree sign there. It asks for the tangent, so all I have to type in is tangent of 21. And I get negative 1.53. So realize that that is a radian measure, not a degree measure. Same with this one. It's secant of 5, not 5 degrees, but 5 radians. So 5 radians would be somewhere over here. So I need to take the cosine of 5 radians. So make sure I'm in radians, which I am. Cosine of 5 radians, get my answer, and then take the reciprocal. I get 3.53. So just be careful. You have to make sure you have a degree sign in order to know you're in degrees. Okay, let's see if we can get the other two done here pretty quickly. These are ones where, again, you have to draw a picture. So when I see the sign of -5/13, I'm going to draw a picture. It tells me it's between pi and 3 pi over 2, so it's down here, because this is pi and that's 3 pi over 2. The sign is y over r. So I know my y value is going to be -5, my r value is 13. So I should be able to find x. So -5 squared plus x squared has to equal 13 squared. So this is 25, this is 169. So again, I probably wouldn't have to even put that on my, I could just do it in my calculator. 13 squared minus -5 squared, or 25. I get x squared is 144. Take the square root of that, and our answer is 12. And that's one of the Pythagorean triples we probably should know to save yourself some time. So if you knew that, you could just say that that was 12 right away, but realize it's going to be negative because it is in that third quadrant. So remember, when x squared equals 144, there's really two answers there, plus or minus. And we need to know from our picture that that's the minus. And so once I have that, I have my x, my y, and my r, I should be able to find all the other trig values. So the cosine of theta is the x value, -12 over the hypotenuse. The tangent is y over x, so -5 over -12. The negative over negative becomes a positive. Cotangent is the reciprocal of the tangent, 12 over 5. The secant is the reciprocal of the cosine. So since my cosine was -12 over 13, it's -13 over 12. And the cosecant is the reciprocal of the sine, which they gave me, so it's -13 over 5. And it really doesn't matter where you put the negative. You could have 13 over -5 or -13 over 5. Same thing. Okay, so those are your other 5. We'll do the same thing with number 20. With number 20, my cotangent is 4/3. Remember, cotangent is positive in the first or the third, but this says the cosine is negative. So if the cosine is negative, the sine also has to be negative. So again, we're down in the third quadrant. Cotangent is x over y. So I know the x value is -4, the y value is -3. That still gives me a ratio of 4 over 3. So to find my r value, again, I can use Pythagorean theorem, -4 squared plus -3 squared equals r squared. Most of you probably know what this one is, though, because that's 16, that's 9. So 25 is r squared, so r is 5, positive or negative. But realize r is always going to be positive. R is the radius. So when you're solving for r, we'll never have a negative radius. So that's r. So now that I know that that is 5, I should be able to fill everything in. The sine of theta is y over r, -3/5. Cosine of theta is x over r, -4/5. Tangent is either, you could think of it as the reciprocal of this up here, or you just know it's y over x, so it's going to be 3/4. Secant is the reciprocal of the cosine, so -5/4. Cosecant is the reciprocal of the sine, so -5/3. And those are my answers. So with all of these, all you need to do is look at what information they give you to help tell you what quadrant it's in. Label your triangle. Remember, you're always looking at the triangle that goes from your terminal side up to the x-axis. You'll label your x and y or r, whichever one of those three you're given. Use Pythagorean theorem to find the one you're missing, and then you should just be able to fill all of those in.